I'm Tom Gamble. I minister at the Fairland Christian Church, Niles, Michigan. We've been walking through the life of Joseph. It's in the book of Genesis, and today is day 9 of 10 in our journey through his life. Today we're going to look at chapters 48 and 49, and in these chapters we're going to see a couple different things. One is the blessing that Jacob gives on the two sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, and also the blessing that Jacob gives on each of his own sons, the 12 sons of Israel himself. Now, at the beginning of the chapter, in chapter 48, we're going to see here this. He's going to call in Joseph, his son, and Joseph's going to bring before him his own two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And I've got these two young men here, Manasseh and Ephraim. You haven't met them yet. They're here with us today. And let me tell you what happened. Joseph puts these two sons of his by his father so his father can bestow his blessing on his two sons. But unexpected by Joseph, Jacob actually takes his right hand and he crosses over his body and puts his right hand on the younger son Ephraim to give him the bigger or the better blessing, and he puts his left hand across on the other side and he blesses the older son Manasseh with his left hand. All right, so Manasseh and Ephraim both receiving the blessings. All right. When Joseph saw this taking place, it did not sit well with him. Note the conversation that took place between Jacob and Joseph, starting in chapter 48, starting at verse number 17. It says this: When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, "Not this way, my father, since this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations." So he blessed them that day, saying, "By you Israel will pronounce blessings, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh." Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Joseph surely was not expecting this reversal of firstborn status. We then come to chapter number 49, where Jacob blesses his 12 sons. Now, in the cases of Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, we note Jacob recalling poor choices and actions which have negative consequences on them. While we see Jacob speak well of Judah and Joseph. And as we mentioned yesterday, Judah would be in the line through which the Messiah, Jesus, would be born. Let's read together Jacob's blessing on Judah, chapter number 49, verses 8 through 12. This is what Jacob said. He said, "Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you." And here we see that Judah will become the royal tribe. Judah will be the tribe of leadership for the other tribes. It continues. He says, "Judah is a lion's club. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him?" Now, Judah it's the lion tribe. If we look all the way toward the end of the Bible in Revelation 5:5, we see Jesus himself called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Goes on in verse 10, Jacob says, "The scepter," and that's the stick that's in a king's hand, "the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples, binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He has washed his garments in wine, and his vesture in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Following these blessings to his son, Jacob then gives instructions to them about his burial. Chapter 49 ends with the death of Jacob. We're going to read that very last verse. Chapter number 49, it's verse number 33. It says this: "When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people." Now today's teaching focus is actually twofold. First, Joseph was not expecting his father to give Ephraim the firstborn privileges ahead of his older brother Manasseh. But by so doing, get this, Joseph, through these two sons of his, would have then two tribes among the 12 brothers, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Therefore, Joseph would have a double portion, designating him as the firstborn, even though he was not the firstborn by birth order. Second teaching point is this: Jacob recalls the bad choices made by Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Unfortunately for them, these choices lost them the privileges of the firstborn. Reuben lost it. Therefore, after he lost it, it would go to Simeon and Levi, but because of a poor choice they made, they also lost that. Well, let me tell you, in my own life, 30 plus years ago, I still remember to this day that my high school cross-country coach would tell our team repeatedly these words. He would tell them the importance of making the right decisions in daily life. I can still hear him saying these words. He would say, make the right decisions. Make good choices. You know, Coach was right. Decisions, good and bad, have consequences, and some have long-term effects. And Coach, if you're out there listening today, thank you for that lesson you taught us. Has stuck with me for decades. I want to offer words of encouragement to those of you today who may be living in regret for wrong decisions that you've made in your past. My encouragement is, don't dwell on these mistakes. Learn from them. And keep in mind what we looked at a couple of days ago in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, which again says this. Paul writes for us, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." Remember, for those who love God, all things, even the bad decisions that we've made in the past, work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And if you're a disciple of Jesus, a follower of Jesus Christ, that includes you. Prayer focus, first of all, thank the Lord that he can make all things work together for good. And second, I don't know if you live in the country, if you live in town, maybe you're living in an apartment, or what your situation is. But whatever it might be, I encourage you today to be praying for the neighbor of yours who lives next door to you, or maybe in the apartment to your right, the house or the apartment to your left, or the one across the street or across the hall. Pray that if they don't know Jesus, that the Lord might be able to use you somehow to share Jesus with them. Tomorrow we're going to finish our walk through the life of Joseph. So be reading ahead tomorrow, Genesis chapter 50. We'll see you tomorrow.